So what can you tell me, guys, about the Boomerang Loop? What's the initiative all about?
Ben's probably the best person to answer that.
So
Started with yourself.
the initiative, well, where it all came from was an idea an idea of doing something different, an idea of doing something different to what we were usually doing and challenging ourselves physically and mentally to push ourselves to a position that we'd never been before, and to see what we could take from, mentally and physically. That, I think it was 2020, ended 2020, and we both were in the gym quite regularly and training a lot, and hit a few personal goals within the gym that I'd want to do for a long time, and it got to the point where I wanted to do something completely different. I'd not spent any time on a bike, didn't own a bike. I'd never been on a push bike since I was about the age of 12 or 13, when you cycle up to your mate's house. And I think that I wanted to try and go that little bit further and really push myself to something completely brand new. I decided that I was going to cycle around Australia. Now that was a pie in the sky sort of comment and pie in the sky sort of ambition, but you think about it more and more, you think, okay, why not? Why can't you do it? Why can't this be something that you do? And I spoke to Jay while he was at the gym at the time, and I said, look, I'm going to cycle around Australia. And he's like, yeah, I'm in straight away. So that's where it all started, and that's the origin of Boomerang Loop, really, just before it had the name. So
COVID was kind of when the switch flicked.
So look, it did, yeah. So we in the middle of COVID, everyone was working from home. I was working from home for quite a long period of time, and within that, I was listening to a lot of podcasts whilst I was doing my work. And one of the podcasts that I listened to was from a guy called Dean Stott, on the Jocko Willink podcast, and he was talking about his feat of cycling from south of South America all the way up to the very north of North America, through Canada and into Alaska. And he'd never cycled before and just said, yeah, I'm going to give it a go, and the like. So during during COVID and lockdown, you let your mind wander and you think, I can't go anywhere, so let's give it a red up. Right, what's the biggest thing I can do? And that happens to be cycling around Australia. So that's where it originated from, as I say.
And so more specifics about the actual journey. So you did 14,215 kilometers around Australia, and you've raised around, or your goal was to raise around $100,000 to Mindful Australia, was your charity of choice. And you cycled 50 days back to back, averaging around 285 kilometers per day. So just to put that in perspective for the listeners, how long were you on the bike for each day? And what was that like?
Well, looking back now, we're anything from 10 to was our longest days maybe 15 hours.
16 hours was our longest
15, 16. Yeah, so it's basically equivalent of cycling from Sydney to Canberra every day. And even when you just say there the 50 days in a row, leading up to it, we were a little bit worried about if we should have a rest or if we should do the 50 days in a row. But looking back now, I think 50 days in a row was the best thing we could have ever done, because the rest would catch up with us. But yeah, it was averaging around 285. We did some longer days, but that was like the average. Yeah, so Sydney to Canberra every day.
Wow. That's tremendous physical feat. It's quite astonishing, really, thinking about sitting on a bike. The only thing I can think of is I'd have a bloody sore ass after 15 hours sitting on the seat of a bike. So it's really commendable that you guys have taken initiative to train for that journey. I can only imagine what training was actually involved. Ben, you're an architectural technologist, and Jay, you're a construction/plumber, and you're both from the UK. When did you guys move to Australia, and have you always been in those in those roles, or have you been doing anything change careers or anything of that nature?
Yeah. So I moved in, I think it was 2017, I think. So I think I've been here about 6 years, I think. Could be very wrong with that. But yeah, no, when I moved, that's the first job that I had and went into, and that was my experience. Sort of coming into Australia was being in the architecture sort of sector, I guess. During COVID and during lockdown, I actually lost my job, which was difficult because at the same time you're trying to plan for a cycle of great magnitude and everything else, and deal with the stress of losing a job. It was a lot to take on, and Jay will tell you of his experience as well. But look, it was obviously a difficult period of time, but I actually moved over to a project management space, and now I work as a project manager for clients producing different sort of buildings and the like. So it's it's been a crazy couple of years of that COVID period, and not just for the COVID and the lockdown sort of situation, but for everything else that was involved, which we'd sort of taken on as well. So that was my sort of movements anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, mine's similar to that as well. Like I worked as a gas engineer and plumber in the UK, and that kind of transitioned into Australia as well. And then during the whole COVID lockdown situation, the work was kind of drying up where I was working was one of the red zones. So that kind of left me in a position where I couldn't really work, and ended up kind of changing roles and careers towards the project manager as well. So there was a lot of stress looking back, there was a lot of stress during that kind of lockdown time and while we were training as well. Jobs changing, loss of jobs, but we still managed to kind of get through the training and get over the line and get as well. And plus, we both had failed careers as plumbers, as plumbers, as rugby players. So, we've kind of come back. We've come from like active backgrounds, but yeah, we're construction and I guess fitness fanatics.